So, almost 2 weeks ago, we made a video talking about the Montreal Canadiens and the apparent Kris Letang trade request. This was an idea that was floated out there by Mark Madden, Pittsburgh sports talk legend, and a guy who definitely has sources. Now, I'm not going to go out there and say 110% that the Kris Letang request thing to Montreal was real, but with Mark Madden being the voice that spoke out about this entire idea, it provided us the opportunity to talk about it too. Now, that was 10 days ago, and the thing is, there hasn't really been any extra updates in regards to Kris Letang, if you're just looking at it from the Montreal Canadiens' point of view. There have been, however, a few other things posted here and there, talking about the Penguins and talking about Letang that really... do I want to say, like, they reopened the door to this Montreal conversation? Bear with me here, because their source is on The Athletic. It's Josh Yohei, who wrote a piece on the same August 13th day that we had discussed the Letang trade request. Why haven't the Pittsburgh Penguins signed Sidney Crosby to a new contract? This was on The Athletic. It's paid for material. If you want to go ahead and read this yourself, the link is in the description, but you're gonna have to do that only if you have the actual subscription. For our purposes, though, instead of reading The Athletic, let's head over to an article on danslescoulisses.com, because this same piece by Marc-Olivier Cook from August 13th goes out there with some of the quotes that we care about from Josh Yohei's piece. I'm willing to bet that Kyle Dubas would trade Macklin and Letang if he could. And you know what? The best part about that phrasing by Josh Yohei that's ripped off and put into the title of this Dans les Coulisses piece, it's like a play on words, isn't it? Kyle Dubas would trade Macklin and Letang if he could. It's kind of like the we can and we will, right? He would if he could. Similar kind of structure with the sentence there. But let's go out there and talk about what it says here in this Dans les Coulisses piece. It goes out there and transcribes pretty much some of the important stuff that Josh Yohei writes in his piece. The article opens up by just introducing the context of the Penguins and their situation. One has to wonder what the plan is for the Penguins going forward. After all, there are several hot topics at the moment for the Penguins. Sidney Crosby and his contract situation, Macklin, who is reportedly in his last year in Pittsburgh, the rumors about Kris Letang. Josh Yohei of The Athletic spoke about the situation in a recent article, and his comments may not please Penguins fans. According to him, if Kyle Dubas had his way, we would probably see Macklin and Letang traded for two specific reasons. One, they're old, and two, they still have some value in the trade market because they are still productive on the ice. The comment from Josh Yohei reads this: I'm willing to bet that Dubas would trade Macklin and Letang if he could. They make a lot of money, they're in decline, and the return would help the Penguins rebuild. Now, for funsies' sake, let's go out there and read the ending part of this article. In Pittsburgh, every fan has the right to be concerned. After all, the arrival of Kyle Dubas at the helm of the club did not have the desired effect on the ice during the last season, even with the acquisition of Erik Karlsson from San Jose. And the Penguins do not have the largest bank of prospects in the NHL, on the contrary. The club will have no choice but to enter a rebuild at some point, but it's hard to predict the perfect time for that to happen with Crosby, Macklin, and Letang still firmly in place. Everything seems to be complicated within the organizations, to put it another way, and it seems like it coincides with the hiring of Kyle Dubas. And okay, I get what the article is going for here at the very end of the piece. It's kind of fear-mongering that Kyle Dubas is the devil kind of label, and I don't want to go out there and say that it's 100% accurate. It just kind of, aligns here. If you wanted to map everything out and see what happened when and who was in charge during those decisions. Either way, though, if you wanted to ignore the Kyle Dubas angle, just talking about what it is the Pittsburgh Penguins have as their situation, it is kind of frustrating, to say the least. They're getting older, they don't have too many young guys, they're still acquiring guys who are middle-aged and that can help them produce right now, but what exactly is that going to accomplish? They're probably going to contend for a playoff spot this upcoming year, but if it's anything like last season, they could very well miss out. Who really knows? How long can Macklin, Letang, and Crosby be as good as they are? And with Erik Karlsson tossed into the mix as well, you have an entire other aspect of the core aging veteran guys that you need to consider too. So for Kris Letang, with all the conversations about him and the Montreal Canadiens that started up a few days ago, when you consider the idea that, hey, maybe Kyle Dubas just really wants to get rid of this guy, it does open the door to more possibilities. Now, sure, you can say that for Montreal, acquiring a guy like Kris Letang really should not be up there on their list of priorities, and honestly, I kind of get where everybody's coming from with that. We have seen people saying, hey, there are already too many defensemen on the Montreal Canadiens. It doesn't seem like a profitable move to just grab a whole bunch of extra guys that are old because they want to play in Montreal. Sure, it would be fulfilling those players' own wishes, but do you really need to think about other players' wishes when you are the Montreal Canadiens? Is that something that you should be focusing on? Hey, an NHL legend, 3-time Stanley Cup champion wants to play here. We should do our best to make that happen. Is that really something you should be thinking about? You could very well say no, screw that, screw Kris Letang and his wishes. If his player profile, his age, his contract, his role on the team is not really going to be utilized as much as it could be, it's not worth it for the Montreal Canadiens to make this trade. It would just be a fan service, kind of doing right by the player kind of move to get this done. Then screw that, don't make the Letang trade. But if it really is, like Mark Madden said on the radio, that Kris Letang himself just wants to be a Montreal Canadien, and if the Pittsburgh Penguins are willing to bite the bullet on making that happen, if it's Pittsburgh that is doing right by the player, quote-unquote, and sending Letang to his hometown team, maybe with salary retained or maybe for a lesser return, and Montreal is able to capitalize on that, then okay, be my guest. The Montreal Canadiens kind of fleeced the Columbus Blue Jackets in that Patrik Laine trade just a few days ago, so we do know that Kent Hughes has it in him to make a trade like this work if he wanted to really squeeze whatever assets that he could keep and make it so that the other team doesn't really get the best return possible. I feel like a lot of Columbus fans, while they did acknowledge that Patrik Laine needed to get traded and it was going to be a pretty meh kind of transition for him to stick around in Columbus, they recognize that, hey, getting the trade done, that was the important part of it all. They got the trade done, so they can't complain. Sure, Jordan Harris might not be the best, fantastic, biggest, and most amazing return that you could have asked for a guy like Patty Laine, but you got something. And maybe for Kris Letang, you could say the argument exists for the Penguins to exhibit some sort of a similar kind of transition, where they maybe don't get the best return possible, but they make the player feel good, and they make the trade happen anyway. Is that a possibility? I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below if you think the Montreal Canadiens Kris Letang thing is still worth thinking about. It was talked about here on this article on The Athletic. Link is going to be in the description. The Don Les Coulisses piece also goes out there and describes those similar emotions. So all of our sources are going to be linked in the description if you want to go ahead and read those yourself. But for now, Montreal Canadiens fans, Pittsburgh Penguins fans, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about the idea of a Kris Letang trade? Do you think it's possible? Do you think it's likely? Do you think it's going to happen? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. 99 and bye.